one that has to deal with the economy. There are a great deal of people concerned, I would say that's all of us, regarding the stock market crash today of approximately 500 points, which is an enormous dip. And that dip has shaken the financial world, both here in the United States of America and, of course, all over Europe, the Eurozone, because they're already in a state of fragility. George Soros, the international financier, he predicted that if the situation with Greece was not handled in an orderly manner, that it could create an economic collapse in Europe, and that if it was not properly contained here in the United States of America, well, I'm paraphrasing him, but he said he has confidence that the government will do anything it takes to stop that from happening. Now, you can read into the words anything it takes any way you like, but to me there's an ominous ring to those words. Now, before we get into the economic facts regarding these situations, I want to remind you of a principle that seems to be left out in all the discussions in the media, and that's this principle, and I deal with it in my new DVD series, Are You Ready for the Coming One World Government? Are you ready for the coming one world economic system? And are you ready for the coming one world religion? In Are You Ready for the Coming One World Economic System, I state, and I back it up with facts, and I've been saying this for decades, that the current economic collapse and decline that we're experiencing in America is a planned event. It is not the result of bad investments, although there have been plenty of bad investments. But it's planned, it's intentional. And the crisis in Europe is also planned, and it's also intentional. And I go into detail about this because a lot of people, I mean, I've been on the biggest news network programs out there, and I've been on the biggest financial programs out there, and I've debated some of the largest economists in the world and the editors of the largest financial publications in the world. Now, I'm not an economist, and what qualifies me to speak on the subject is that I do my homework, and a lot of them rest on their laurels. But I noticed something very peculiar in these debates and in these discussions. And I noticed that there was a conspicuous absence that I believe is deliberate regarding the word Federal Reserve. The Fed, the Federal Reserve is mentioned constantly, but there seems to be an unspoken rule that you don't really talk to the television audience and explain to the TV audience who the Fed is. That's an unspoken rule. And even as you watch the current political debates, you will notice, again, with the exception of one candidate, all the so-called conservative candidates, they don't talk about what the Fed really is. And I know for a fact that a number of them, the two leading candidates, know very well what the Fed is and how it plays a role in this. So to make a long explanation short, for those of you that might not know, the Fed is a private corporation of international bankers that has nothing to do with the U.S. government. It consists of European banking families like the Rothschilds, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, U.S. bankers, and it basically is a group of international bankers that are legally not accountable to the United States government. They legally do not have to disclose their membership, and they legally don't have to disclose their budget. They don't have to disclose anything. And yet, they control the monetary supply of the United States of America. And this was something that George Washington and many of our founding fathers tried to stop. Another word for the Federal Reserve could be a central bank. And our founding fathers wanted to stop the Federal Reserve because they perceived it as the central banks of Europe trying to come in and take over the government and take over the economic system by calling it a new name, the Federal Reserve. So put that on the shelf for a moment. But know this, the Fed, these international bankers, are looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for America. Their profits are theirs. They could care less about what happens to America as long as they make profits. So it's an adversarial relationship. And now you may say, well, why don't I read that in the media? I get that question asked all the time. And you don't read it in the media because the Federal Reserve, it controls every major media outlet in the United States of America. In fact, I have a quote in my DVD series from Rockefeller where he thanks the major media for helping him conceal what his true plans are. Now, let's talk about what they're doing to try to fix this economy, which some have said we are essentially in the Great Depression all over again. And this is one of the leading, most widely respected financial analysts in our nation. And he said the only reason you don't see the soup lines and the people out in the street is because they're getting checks from the government. But he said the devastating financial circumstances is basically the equivalent of what happened during the Great Depression. It's just that you can't see it so obviously. But we need to be concerned about that, and we need to be proactive about it. So let's talk about some of their plans and see if these plans have a high likelihood of rebounding or rebooting our economy. The Federal Reserve has launched what they call Operation Twist, and they decided to use the quantitative easing 3 on America. But instead of naming it after its dismal failure, QE2 and QE1, this non-governmental agency called it Operation Twist. And some people are calling it Operation Twist and Shout because by the time you're finished going through it, you're going to be screaming and shouting in pain that you've lost everything. And that is not funny. The Fed will purchase $400 billion worth of treasuries and maturities between 6 and 30 years. Now, why is that important to you? It's important to you because this Operation Twist from the Fed is a stealth attack on your pensions. You see, they have every intention. This group of independent bankers who have nothing to do with our government intend to raid your pension funds to solve the debt. And that's wrong. And if you want to take it even technically further, it's against the Constitution. Of course, the Fed itself is against the Constitution of the United States of America because we, the people, have the right to print our own money, not some independent banking cartel that doesn't have to obey the rules and laws of the United States of America. Now, the Dow and Standard & Poor's 500 index fell below its lowest close of 2011 in direct response to the Federal Reserve's announcement that it saw significant downside risks and would plan to replace $400 billion of short-term debt with longer-term treasuries. This enables them to raid your pension funds. And I hope you write that down and understand the full implications. They intend to come after your pension funds to pay off a debt that was artificially created. In fact, I'm going to say it again, the economic decline of the United States of America and Europe is intentional and planned. Soros was quoted by the BBC, where he spoke to millions of Europeans, and he said that, and I'm paraphrasing him, and he said that the game plan was to lower the value of the dollar artificially and lower the middle class in the US and Europe and transfer trillions of dollars of wealth into third world nations, which ends up in the hands of dictators, so that it would equalize the playing field, and Americans and Europeans and others would scream for a one world currency. You see, to put it bluntly, this is about bringing us to our knees with economic force so that we cry out and accept any kind of global currency and, of course, inevitably, global government, because the two are hand in hand. Now, Peter Schiff, a very well-known financial analyst, said that the collapse was another indication that a global depression was already unfolding. Those are very strong words. And that we are much less than the real rate of inflation. So many economists are claiming that QE3 is now off the table. But Schiff said that it is not off the table, and that the Fed chairman, Ben Bernanke, would turn to the printing presses, as they did in Nazi Germany, in a scheme to hide the collapse of the economy by inflating the economy. And this is all very dangerous. Now, I want to evaluate this from a biblical standpoint. You know, behind the Federal Reserve, and we go into this in the DVD series, the secret occult societies going back to the 1300s, the secret societies that permeate Europe and still in the United States, and they go by various names, and their devotion to the belief of the plan of the Fabian socialists to have a one world government and a one world financial system. This is a planned demise because they want to break the independent sovereignty of the United States of America so that it will merge into a global government. And that's what this is all about. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand the game. Now, what can you do? Well, we're going to get into that in a moment, and we have some things for you to review in the DVD series, answers. But I do want to say this. First is that God has not given us a spirit of fear. He's given us power, love, and a sound mind.